Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Before I introduce myself, I just want to get to know a few of you a little bit. Raise your hand if you have a brand in the sector. Excellent. Raise your hand if you're curious about having a brand in the sector and that's why you're here. Amazing. I'm just trying to gauge our audience so we don't bore you and we fill you with lots of interesting takeaways that you can use to further your career goals. My name is Sarah Brittany Somerset. I started the first cannabis and drug policy related news desk at the United Nations in 2011, and I currently also serve as Director of Impact for lifestyle brand Blazy Susan. And if I could do one tiny little plug, Blazy Susan is launching a brand called Blazy Chillers, so look out for that. Next to me is Devon Richardson. Devon is awesome. She is the co-founder of Lorea, and as excited as I am to tell you what Lorea means, I want you to tell everyone, because when she told me the origin story, I was like, I love that.
So, Lorea is a functional wellness beverage, and we combine cannabinoids and adaptogens to support specific moods and states of mind. So, we have a function for energy, focus, happy, and sleep, and they're supposed to slip into your daily rituals. So, our co founder, she's an ultra athlete, so she ran 200 miles on her 60th birthday. One of her coaches ran across Australia. I have done one half marathon, so I'm not that impressive, but we all share values of personal growth and development, and we use cannabinoids through our daily rituals. So we believe in, being our best, and cannabis helps us do that. So we found a growing community of people who wanted to do the same, and so we launched Lorea. Lorea actually means flower in Basque, and it's a great representation of the human experience of change. So whether you're planting your roots, you're growing, or you're blossoming, we thought it was a great fit for what we're trying to do and help people accomplish.
Excellent. And before I introduce our next panelist, I just want to give some context for the beverage sector, because I know this is AltBev. It's not just about cannabis beverages, but I think primarily here we're going to talk about hemp beverages, THC beverages, and also big box retailers who are moving into that space and sector. And in 2017, when Bruce Linton did his deal with Constellation Brands, it was really ahead of its time. And some people thought he was absolutely crazy. They just could not handle the fact that the alcohol market was going to make a foray into the cannabis market. To me, it made perfect sense. It was co-opting inebriation as a whole. However, in the beginning, a lot of these brands did not, there was like a failure to launch because they didn't taste good. A lot of them, had emulsion issues, they had binding issues, they just didn't taste very good. Some tasted really weedy, some tasted like nothing at all. And so there was like growing pains as people tried to formulate decent brands. Now, pivot to where we are now, there's been an absolute explosion of brands, right? There's almost so many brands. And my colleague Klaus asked me yesterday at dinner, he's like, how are all of these brands going to make it now that there's so many brands? And I said, well, I hate to say it, not all of them are. And he said, well, what's going to make them? And I said, having the marketing that connects with your audience. How do you connect with your audience? How do you carve your niche? And the one thing I love about this panel so much is that the people on it, their brands are so differentiated from one another. Now, when I heard of Parker's brand, it's called Liberty in a Can. I was like, I have finally found a beverage that I can serve to my dad. My dad's a Vietnam vet. I'm sure he's done cannabis in his lifetime, not that he would ever admit it to me. But but he supports my work in the sector, but I'm like, Liberty in a Can would speak to him, and that's a totally different demographic. So tell me about that.
So my mic's not working, so I
Oh.
guess probably borrow between. Okay, yeah, there's a light that's on, but beyond that, I don't know. Maybe a triple click. Thank you.
Check.
Oh, beautiful. He had the magic touch. So Liberty in a Can is America's THC seltzer. When we looked at the space, there wasn't a lot of branding that just resonated with us, and we were kind of looking like, what's going to be the Bud Light of this space? And there's a long, long way to go to there, but we just wanted something that was, patriotic, not political. Liberty in a Can is helping you celebrate the pursuit of happiness, and that's what our country was founded on. Something everyone can come celebrate and share and come back to. So we started July 4th, 2024 with sales, and we came out with a lime and watermelon, and thankfully people like the drinks or we wouldn't be around. So.
Excellent. And this is a perfect example of two people in the space who have a similar concept, but vastly different marketing targets demographics. Mark, I know you're in a different space. You're a CEO of AMASS, so tell us about your company and its interest in the sector.
Sure, yeah. So, AMASS Brands Group, we're a multi-beverage platform that spans alcohol, non-alc, and functional. We do have a brand in the hemp THC space called Afterdream. And Afterdream is really focused on kind of an area of the markets made by Morgan McLaughlin, who's my co-founder. She's a top female master distiller in the space, a botanist by trade. And, you know, if you think of kind of the intersectionality of the space, you have obviously a lot of room across these kind of various categories. And so if they're the Bud Light, we're kind of going after the premium craft cocktail side of the market, right? Morgan, as a botanist, also includes, you know, both theanine and lion's mane, organic lion's mane in the product to kind of round it out. And then, you know, very kind of calamansi lime and you know, clove and notes. So it's very kind of craft feeling.
So it's like more functional with adaptogens.
Exactly.
And who would be like your target audience for that beverage?
We've seen it mostly skew women, 30 plus tends to be about 70% of the market.
Excellent. Now, when your brand portfolio, do you come from the traditional alcohol space?
Yeah, so we have brands across spirits, wine, and non-alc. The throughput is that everything is like better for you or has some element of better for you. In alcohol marketing, you can't really make better for you claims, but you can imply it with your packaging, your ingredients, you know, your positioning. So we own brands like Cali Rosa Tequila, AMASS Gin, which has like ashwagandha, and it's the first gin that has like mushrooms distilled into it. Morgan actually once just distilled mushrooms, and all the way down, that was the only ingredient. I can tell you that was a very barnyard smell, but it wasn't great. It's nice when it's mixed with other things. And then we have a wine portfolio of natural, organic, and biodynamic wines. Summer Water Rosé, which is the best-selling premium domestic rosé in the U.S. It's a sugar-free. Dissois, non-alcoholic aperitifs. That's a brand we launched with Katy Perry around 4 years ago. It's been doing very well. That's all adaptogens. So we kind of span the entire universe, but the throughput is all elements of better for you for that kind of modern consumer.
Well, you touched on two very valid points, because on one hand, you have adaptogens, and while it may sound wonderful to put some of these really healthy ingredients in a drink, the reality is they don't always smell good, they don't always taste good, they're not always palatable, so that's a significant challenge. And then, you know, you mentioned Katy Perry, and that's another thing I wanted to ask about, is like having a celebrity endorsement. How far does that carry a brand? Does it carry a brand at all, or is it like an initial name recognition, and then does the beverage still have to live up to the hype, or can the celebrity just carry the brand?
Celebrity is very tricky, I would say. It's very dependent on the person, right? You see brands like I think consumers are getting very intelligent, and so if you just slap something on, if somebody just endorses a brand, that's very different from somebody co-founding a brand. So, you know, she went through the process with Morgan. They were both pregnant at the same time. They were like spending a ton of time together. They're going through every iteration of the product. They worked with Carrie Hughes, who's an ethnobotanist. She came in with the functional levels of adaptogens. Then Morgan's trying to offset, you know, the functional levels of adaptogens with the flavor science to make them taste good. So it was the product development took a very, very long time. They were both very, very invested in it. Katy was, maniacal about making sure that the product got to exactly where she wanted to be, incredibly proud of that product. And then was super engaged in the launch, and the branding, marketing, positioning, all of those things. And so, and you even see that in other brands. I think another good case is like Bureau right now, a non-alcoholic brand that was co-founded by Tom Holland. Like Tom is like in it to win it, right? He, you know, like, there's no task too small for him to go and do for
They
that
also
brand
have
to
a
be
meet and
successful.
greet with them.
What's that?
They also have a meet and greet with them. In
Yes.
their membership. They do a great job.
They do a great job, and I mean that's just and it's super authentic to him, right? He stopped drinking. He loves beer. It's you know, he speaks so eloquently about the brand. So that's an example of things done right. You see a million of these deals where it's kind of like a B-list celebrity who slaps their name on things, and then they think they're going to work, and it's not a silver bullet.
So it's not just like the celebrity who's endorsing coffee on a subway in Japan, but like it's super like separated from the brand, right? It's like he shows up, he does the work, he shakes hands, he's invested. So that carries the brand further. Before we go any further, I just want to ask, how many of you are familiar with the three-tier system of alcohol distribution? Obviously you. Would that be of interest to hear more about that? No hands? Okay, we'll just bypass that. Oh, you do want to hear about? Okay, great. So since you're involved in that, I just want to go touch on that a little bit because I think it pertains like right now there's sort of like a dialogue going on where the future of this category's distribution is kind of up in the air. We don't know if startups are going to be able to go directly to shelf as they have in the past, or with the regulations coming in November, if the kibosh is going to be put on that, and if so, in which states, and if eventually all of these drinks are going to have to default to a three-tier alcohol distribution system, which is how alcohol gets from manufacturer to shelf space. So tell us about that a little bit.
Yes, so the three-tier distribution system is kind of a relic of prohibition. And so each state actually has their own alcoholic beverage commission that and their own unique rules, which make it incredibly, you know, difficult. A supplier legally has to sell to a distributor. A distributor legally has to sell to a retail license, and a retailer sells to the end customer. And you are not actually allowed to have a financial interest in any of the other tiers. So if you own a brand, you can't legally own a hotel license, right? If you own a distributor, you can't legally own a brand. So that's why you don't see, you know, Bud Light bars, right? You don't see that type of vertical integration. So in some ways, it's kind of set up to protect the integrity of the system, so that you just don't have these kind of total monopolies. But for people starting brands and for, you know, entrepreneurs, the sequencing problem is incredibly profound because, you know, if you can, and this is one of the areas where like the hemp THC and the Farm Bill has allowed people to do direct to consumer, you know, direct to consumer e-commerce, which is an incredible way to disintermediate and get your brand in front of the end consumer and generate revenue early. But if you actually have to sequence through that three-tier system, you know, you might have an incredible brand and customers might love that brand, but your customer is not the end customer. You got to convince the distributor, and then and you have to convince the retailer, and then the retailer has to sell it to the end customer. So it's a really hard problem to solve in Bev Alc, and if hemp THC goes in the same vein, you know, and you've seen a lot of consolidation at the distributor tier, and a lot of turmoil at the distributor tier. If you've seen what's going on with RNDC, and it's a minefield.
Yeah, it's
minefield.
literally a battle royale. Like, I've heard both sides of the argument. You know, I've heard the Boston Beer side of the argument, which is like, this system has been in place for 100 years. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. It works. Let's just go with that and get all the, you know, AltBevs onboarded with that. The opposite end of that argument is, I have a scrappy startup. I just want to get my drink in the hands of consumers. I don't want to have to give a third of my profits away to a distributor. I don't know if that distributor is going to have, you know, as much interest in getting it out there as, you know, my personal sales reps would, et cetera. So, you know, Parker, when we discussed it, you said you loved having a distributor, and I wanted you to, you know, explain why you're in favor.
I mean, yeah, I don't have to carry everything in my car, so that's a really good start, right? Because otherwise it is kind of just, you know, you have to get it there, and that's a huge problem in itself. I mean, it starts to be very, very time consuming as you start to have some success, and, you know, people want you in 50 different places at once. So, you know, looking to someone that has, you know, just massive experience and true wisdom and, you know, systems in place when it comes to getting things where they need to be on time at an extremely consistent basis, that consistency is hard to internalize. And so I have a lot of respect for the scrappiness of these startups and, the teams that they've been building to do that. But it's, much easier to look to, someone that's been there, done that, and, has a lot of those existing relationships too, because otherwise you're really starting from zero. And that's a really good way to, get your foot in the door and show that proof of concept, and then, find people quickly that, understand your vision and the path forward for you and how they can kind of contribute to that in a very, meaningful way. And so that's what these distributors often, that's what they look like. You look at them as a true partner. Those contracts that you sign is like a prenup. Look at it like a marriage, and that's exactly what it is. So it can be beautiful. But
Yeah, just to add, it's for those who want to self-distribute, it's incredibly complex and it requires a great level of sophistication. I mean, I haven't done it on the beverage side, but I worked on the cannabis side, and it's just highly complex. And to scale efficiently, you need that level of sophistication, expertise. You end up it requires a lot of capital. You'll burn through a ton of cash and make a lot of mistakes. The distributors also have local expertise in different markets that you won't have, and they can guide you in the right direction based on who your brand is and where you're best positioned, and then they can support selling across different channels, so from convenience to retail, on-premise, et cetera. So they offer a lot of value, in my opinion.
And also, even though it's kind of self-explanatory, right, what is distribution? Getting a beverage from point A to point B, from the manufacturer to the retail shelf. There's a lot more involved with distribution. You were telling me about that the other day. They do more than just that.
yeah, I mean, that's something I was really excited, right? Here's a 50-person sales team that I now have access to in some way. And these are people that, now are opening their mouths for me. And like when I open my mouth, that's when stuff gets done. So if I can have a lot more people, representing our brand in the right way, they have those talking points down. And I think the talking points is something important to focus on as well, because yeah, you have all these great paragraphs in your head about how to talk about the brand, but these guys may only have a few seconds to kind of get that point across, but they're actually getting that point across still. And so it's your job to kind of help encourage that, inspire these guys to get out there and go do it. But they're trying to sell cases, and so that's what they're focused on, and you help them do that, and they're going to help you in ways that you just wouldn't think or expect. So there's really a a butterfly effect with having a lot of the same people on the same page. And it's really hard to think about just replacing that again internally, especially when resources are limited. Hires are very, very expensive, and that's with the addition of maybe you find a great hire and you lose them. And so human capital is so important, and that word of mouth is everything. And the relationships you can build with them are extremely meaningful. One-on-one with these sales reps, that makes all the difference.
Excellent. Devon, one of the things we also talked about was some challenges that you face as a startup growing your brand and how you learn to pivot from them. And I know that's like kind of a pain point that nobody wants to rehash, but like I feel like it's important to let
Yes.
people know that they're not alone.
It is important, I think, to discuss about how hard beverage is. I think I think if someone told me how hard it was, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things. One, I mean, I think this is pretty standard, just building your team. I'm a first-time beverage founder, so I'm hiring for things that I don't necessarily have an expertise in, which has been learning. But if you are lucky enough to work with someone like Brian in the back, he's a great headhunter. That's always helpful. But in general, with beverage, you're just learning so much. I mean, cannabis beverage is so new, so sometimes your operators or your manufacturers, they're learning with you. And ultimately, there's gonna be mistakes. You're putting out fires every day, but your partners are so critical to the success, because when things happen, it's what you do on the back end, right? It's not the actual mistakes that happen, it's how people are recovering. As an example, our first production run, I found out 6 hours before canning that 72,000 cans were printed incorrectly. And after 10 rounds of checks and balances, it was unfortunately on the canner's side, right? And they owned up to it. A couple F-bombs were dropped for sure. And somehow They managed to reprint 72,000 cans. By the way, it takes like 6 weeks to get into production channels with some of your partners, if not longer. And they somehow turned that around and delivered cans from Austin to Denver in less than 72 hours. That saved all of our ingredients that were batched. I mean, it was impressive, and we'll be partners for as long as I can see. And so that type of recovery, and that's happened. I could talk about a number of other instances where that happened in just that one production line, and the partners that pulled through. And I don't even know how they managed to solve the problems that they did, but it makes all the difference. And it makes these challenges, it makes the success that much sweeter, right? But yeah, I'm sure you guys have plenty of
Yeah, I
whirlwinds.
think the importance of having a really strong supply chain is everything. Those partners make that up all the way. So a constant vetting of if people needs to be happening, and when you find the right ones, and really just working hard to align with them, and knowing again that you share their vision, right? Ultimately, if that's not happening, then you guys won't be on the same page, and you just the communication will fall off in one way or another. And so just being close with all of your suppliers and letting them know kind of what you're struggling with and what's to come, and that's huge. I mean, 72 hours is like mind blowing for that number, and for them to own up to it is amazing. So that's a great partner right there. Like,
So we talked a lot. Oh, no, go ahead. You look like you wanted to say something. No, you're good. Okay. We talked a little bit about in the beginning about brand origin stories. Like it starts with a concept, a napkin drawing, and that eventually launches into the brand. What inspired you to launch this brand?
Well, it was really, Jody, my partner, she's just an impressive woman. She's one of the toughest women I've ever met. And when we really looked at how we consume cannabis and cannabinoids in our daily lives, we wanted to bring that to the world, and we knew there was a growing community who wanted to do the same. We're leaning more into the performance angle. I'm sure you all have heard that there are athletes who also consume. And I think, the perception of cannabis is changing. The rules in, NHL, the NBA, they're changing their testing requirements. So things are changing, and I think there's an awareness growing when it comes to cannabis use and performance. The science is there. I think the awareness just isn't. And so, I microdose pretty much every day, not even necessarily with THC. There's CBG, CBD, CBN, right? So we wanted to be able, our beverages are a little bit more complex. They're a little bit challenging to describe to people, especially when you add in the adaptogens. But there's a strong functional component that I think is super impactful, and it has a longevity that we really want to focus on. So we just kind of honed in onto the experience and the result we want people to have.
And how's that going so far?
It's good. It's great.
Good. I think you should try her brand while you're here. And Parker's. So these two sitting next to me, they're working with one particular brand. And Mark on the end obviously is working with a portfolio of brands. So one thing I'm curious about is like, how do you pick your favorite child, right? Like obviously you're not supposed to have one, but when you got this portfolio of brands, how do you make sure like a rising tide lifts all boats and they're all equally successful?
Yeah, you don't want ugly baby syndrome. um, so um, alcohol is having a hard moment, right? So we were very early in alternatives in non-alc. That was a core part of our thesis. I started the company in 2019, and funnily enough, we actually launched like our After Dream brand. We had this thesis that cannabis was going to be a huge part of the market, and so we actually launched After Dream 2022 as a line under the AMASS brand, and we tried to launch it through the traditional California ecosystem, and it was an absolute disaster. We got no efficacy out of our sales team because everything had to go through the dispensaries. You had to pay the distributor flat fees for a distributor. You couldn't do e-com. You couldn't do, and so about $1 million into this project, and the people love the liquid. People are showing up at our office trying to buy the liquid. Like so the consumer side is going back to the sequencing thing. The consumer was like, we love this, but we were like, from a business model perspective, like, we don't know how to make this work. So I sunset that brand, and then you have guys like Avon here who caught onto the hemp THC side and launched and did loop ends around everybody with the Brez brand, and I was like asleep at the wheel, like, wait, what just happened over here? So so we decided we wanted to re-enter the market, but the route to market really helps define what you can do. And so as I think about brands now, anything that you can do e-commerce first, that you can get proof points, that you can get data. We've even started, like, with new brands. We're making renderings of brands in AI, and then we're launching advertising for basically fake brands to see what consumers actually like out of our
It's like
brands. Market research in real time. So there's always a problem child. There's always something going wrong with some part of a portfolio. But I think our core thesis is that the world is moving into a new stage where people are going to really value the things they care about, the things that they put in their body. And so we're just really focused on how can we meet them in that moment. And there's a lot of new opportunities that kind of continue to stack up there. But it is a challenge to manage a portfolio because something's working, something's not working. You normally spend more time trying to figure out the thing that's not working rather than doubling down on the thing that's working. So not easy.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be stressful. One of the things I noticed is that whenever I happen to really like a brand and really root for a brand, like, that's the one that's like struggling. I'm all about like rooting for the underdog, and sometimes you just love a brand, like it has everything going for it. It tastes good, it looks good, but it just doesn't have that backing. And a lot of times people are nervous about taking outside investment because every time you do, right, you give up a piece of ownership in your company. But sometimes getting that investment is pivotal because it comes with bigger budgets where you can do PR, you can do marketing, you can do digital advertising, you can, a whole world opens up as opposed to you just being like a one-man band. So in your experience, how do you feel like it's better to go it alone, or it's better to just take on outside investment?
Well, we haven't had to do that yet, so
Good.
we're in a unique position. But potentially in the future, I think it's hard though. You're married, and it has to be the right investor. They have to be aligned with your values. They have to understand the market, and but we're not at that point yet.
Yeah, friendly investors is what I'd be looking for, right? I think that really, it's easy to get in bed with a bad investor. I mean, so we haven't engaged with anyone yet. You're gonna hear the same common advice, right? Go family and friends first, and I definitely recommend that. So the people that know you, trust you, believe in you, and then you build from there. But there's never kind of too soon to start, again, finding those right people too, of who do have deeper pockets and will share that vision, because it may take a couple years for things to get solidified, but a couple years ago you were telling them what you're going to do, and then fast forward, you've done it. So that means a lot for these guys, and they want to see you doing what you say you're going to do. And so whatever runway you can build to achieve those goals, and then go back to them and get those the capital to do what's bigger and what's next.
Yeah, I'd say a well-formed capital strategy in beverage is probably one of the most important pieces, because it's not a working capital advantaged business, and it's not a particularly high margin business. So the combination of those two things basically means that the faster you scale, the more money you're going to run out of. So I think it's really important. There are a lot of new things happening, though. Regulation CF, Regulation CF Plus allow you to do equity crowdfunding. That's an interesting angle, I think, to kind of get some consumer sentiment, and relatively dilution insensitive investors. You can sell common stock, things like that. Um, but beverages, you need, like, I mean, you look at brands, people look at, oh, Liquid Death, they're, $1.4 billion brand. It's like they've raised $350 million.
Yeah,
you
and I
know.
would never drink that because I'm so put off by the name. I'm the only one, I guess. Like liquid death. Who wants to drink liquid death?
I'm a fan.
Well, there you go. There's
But
something
I
for
love their
everyone.
marketing, so.
Yeah, I think you can market anything if you put
Yeah.
enough energy and budget behind it, which kind of leads me to my next question. Like, how important is marketing and what percentage of your budget and energy and like manpower do you put towards that?
A lot, a lot. I mean, it's everything. When it comes to just your branding in general, your digital presence, your in-person trade marketing, everything is important and is incredibly hard to find the right people. And especially with the AI, with development of AI, I mean, there's a lot of things that are changing that you can use, but it's finding the right people who know how to use it right as well. So there's creative ways to not burn through a lot of money, but regardless, it's expensive. You need to spend on ads. You need to cut through the noise, and yeah, so it's critical.
And in your experience, which has been more effective for you, like organic earned media or affiliate marketing?
We haven't gotten there yet, actually. We're still we are still getting our feet under us. But yeah, it's we're gonna have to do all the above, in my opinion. We're just trying to figure out which is the lever to pull first.
And what about for you, Parker?
Yeah, I mean, we do a ton of just organic in-person stuff. I'm out there, probably 4 times a week doing samplings for hours, but you also have to take a step back and really see what's working. So it's easy to, just be out there and it feels very tangible and that's fun and you're meeting people. But, making sure that your time is spent efficiently, you have to be tracking the numbers. And if you're not, then you're not running a great business. So, looking at things like budgets and stuff, and again, getting money in the door and being able to tell them this is where it's going to go and this is what it's going to do. But not just talking out of your ass and actually, being like, I've been there, done that. We've tried some things. Here was our hypothesis. Here's how it worked out, and now we're going to double down in that area. So you want to be trying all sorts of things, right? There's a ton of different channels and ways to communicate with people. But some of that organic stuff is just huge. So building our like email list, our text messaging, being able to have that direct line of communication with our customers is humongous. So we're figuring out the paid side of things is difficult. Again, I'd look to partners to do that, but it's really intriguing, some of these AI tools that have come out that make things like media buying and stuff a lot easier, as well as trying different advertisements. It's, again, if you can find someone that can really help you scale that side of things, that's important, as opposed to me just checking out the Nano Banana free trial and getting some cool stuff. And the second version just came out and I'm excited to check it out, but I'm not ultimately the right person to be doing that. So recognizing that is super important too, and just, again, figuring out what you can track and doubling down on what works, and you're going to find success there.
How important do you think social media is for building your brand?
It's critical. It's critical to tell your story. I mean, I think we talk about building an authentic brand, right? And how do you become the most interesting man in the room or woman? You do interesting things, right? So we're a brand that needs to be doing the interesting things, that creates content that you expose on social media. It's how you reach people. I mean, it's absolutely critical.
Yeah, I mean, you want to meet people where they are. People are spending a ton of time online, so if you're not, and having stuff that's going to really be engaging, right, keeping people there, you've seen maybe how much money these streamers are making. I mean, it's mind blowing, like $20 million+ a month because they're having live streams that are going 7 hours with 100,000 plus viewers. So, you know, figure out where people are spending their time and where, ultimately the different demographics that you may have within your business are spending their time, because if you show you like the same weird stuff they do, right, they're going to really resonate with that too. So a lot of ways to be creative and reach people on there, and the way you can kind of segment yourself into these communities, there's just so much opportunity there. So, people are looking at different advertising channels like Reddit and stuff, and in different ways because of that. Back to the kind of community elements and what you're able to build on one social media page versus your Facebook, or we have Liberty in a Can. We've sponsored some racing events, so we have Liberty in a Can Racing, and we have a lot of fans that are based in that. And that's exciting. So I don't know where THC goes in the whole racing world, but it'll be there eventually, just like how we've started to see some stadiums, on board and stuff. And we were sold at like a couple of smaller NASCAR tracks, and it's just people are interested in these things, so it's exciting. And the only reason we've really been able to get that word out is because we've put out that social media stuff that people actually want to engage with, so that it's cool when we're like behind, so to speak, and people are asking like, where's that piece of content, or I want to see this YouTube video. It's like, we have it, we just got to get it up, right? So again, having people that can help you execute that is everything.
So like in terms of beer, one of the most critical forms of advertising is the Super Bowl, right? Budweiser does their Super Bowl ad. Everybody loves the Clydesdales. It's generational, it's ubiquitous, and it moves the needle for them. For cannabis brands, obviously you're not going to have that, multi-million-dollar budget to get that Super Bowl ad. And one thing I find that's often overlooked is people who don't hit up producers and casting directors. Now that may seem kind of off topic for a beverage brand, but I'll give you an example. At Blazy Susan, we had sent some papers around to some casting directors and some producers, and then Hulu had a show called Only Murders in the Building, and there was a scene in which Meryl Streep, who I think is absolutely to die for, smoked a joint with Blazy Susan purple papers, and I nearly fell out of my chair. And I was like, this is amazing. And the next day I was like all over our marketing team, like, how did that happen? Like, how much did we pay for that? And said, no, that was totally organic. Like, we didn't pay for that. We just got it in the hands of the right people. So sometimes you get like a really lucky break, and networking is really important, but you have to think outside of the box. Like, if you can't have the budget to advertise in a publication, maybe you want to hit up that publication's food and lifestyle editor and get your beverage in their hands so they can try it and taste it. Because I find that connecting sometimes with one person is 10 times more valuable than doing this spray and pray where you're sending out an email list and you're just hitting up everybody at once, and it's really impersonal. Now, it's different to what you spoke to. Like, if you're building this brand and you're building your followers and people have organically, wanted to be a part of this newsletter or this news list, that's part of your target demographic. But in terms of like hitting up like advertising people, marketing people, people who have the decisions to publicize or cover your brand, then you really want to personalize that. You don't want to take a one-size-fits-all approach. You have to do the work and put in the time and look at these publications, look at these podcasts, and decide, how am I going to get my product on that show, on that podcast? A lot of times it's not the person, it's the producer, the people who are behind the scenes. So that's also something you want to think about in terms of how you can make that connection without spending a ton of money. I want to open up the panel now to some questions, if anybody has any questions from the audience. No one? Sir?
Hi,
What's your name?
Cedric.
Cedric, thanks for being here.
All right, thank you. What are the limitations, marketing-wise, as far as like advertising an alternative beverage?
Good question.
Specifically, like, if it's infused, if it's cannabis infused, what can you and can you not do?
You really can't do anything. No, but you can't mention really anything about THC or selling it. I mean, there's a way you can educate, but there's a very fine line. Social's pretty tough. There's usually an age gate of over 21. It depends. Some states have different requirements, like for billboards, but a lot of states have a requirement where a certain percentage of the audience has to be over 21. So it's tricky. It's tricky, especially if you're doing anything digital, and if you're expanding out of the state that you're operating in or cross states. Yeah, it's very challenging. And if you're more in the functional health space, you cannot make any claims unless you have specific studies or certifications. So it's just, there's a lot of rules you have to navigate, and they change.
One more question, please. It's me.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Cedric.
How is the age of your audience determined?
Are you talking about digital? It depends if you're looking at digitally,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's a great question. And I think I leave that up to my digital media partners. Do you,
I guess the
Yes,
platforms do a lot of vetting as well.
Yeah.
I mean, they, take verifying who you are pretty seriously. They make a lot of money off this
Okay.
data collection, et cetera. So, they open themselves up for liability if they're not taking care of that too. So it's not all on you, and really they kind of make you fall in between these sort of lanes that they put up, and that includes, the guidelines that are really, really long that probably none of you have read, and that's why you'd look to like an agency that's, again, been there, done that, and having success with navigating, because there are ways to just advertise flour in front of people's faces, and it's beyond the text message marketing. You can put that online when they're scrolling, and it's just something you got to pay for, honestly. So that's where that side of things can get very expensive, but it's a way to get your messaging out there. If you pay enough, you'll get it out there. Yeah.
What's your name, dear?
I'm Rachel, and I think I came late to the party, so I didn't get to hear everyone's backstory or actual company name, but I've been hearing a lot of great information about each of the different brands that you guys work with. And I kind of wanted to hear from each of you individually, like, what's your greater purpose and, like, what's your goal for this coming year?
World domination.
I mean, we'll leave that to other
Sell a
people.
million units.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
So we're a functional wellness beverage. So we're leaning more into the performance angle. Our beverages have specific functions like focus, energy, happy, and sleep. And what was the first part of the question?
What's your purpose?
Oh, our
Get through this
purpose
panel.
is to help. So our drinks are really helping people to be their best version of themselves every day. We're not chasing a high, we're chasing a better version of ourselves. And so for this year, we're really focused on, we just launched in November. So we're trying to really understand what it takes to be successful in Florida. It's our pilot market. There's a lot of regulatory changes up ahead. And so once that kind of solidifies, we'll determine our expansion strategy.
I love that tagline. Say it again.
We're not chasing a high, we're chasing a better version of ourselves.
We're not chasing a high, we're chasing a better version of ourselves. Like, how inspiring is that? Like, I would drink that.
Yeah. Trademark.
Right?
I'd say for me, it's access to cannabis is what inspires me. Cannabis it's a humanitarian crisis. So having access to knowledge about something that has immense therapeutic potential is everything. Just kind of fell into beverages here, but they really are the safest, cleanest, intoxicating beverage maybe known to man. It's the safest, most familiar way I could think to introduce it to someone. Back to that predictability with the dosing and the consistency, it's everything. So, I've gotten my mother to try cannabis this way, but, that pales in comparison. We've had thousands, of people try cannabis this way, and thousands more return to cannabis this way. So whether you're new to the plant or you're a true veteran, our 5 milligram beverages are something you're going to enjoy.
I'd say all of our brands, we're trying to test 1, 2. Trying to facilitate connection. I think in the modern world, that's that's what people derive the most value from is connection, and so we have a myriad of products that are better for you that help kind of usher connection into a new generation.
Right, like you could bring a 6-pack to a party, or you could just bring like a THC additive to a party, or you could bring, now there's such a gamut. That's one thing I love so much about this category is that there's such a gamut to choose from, right? Like you have your 2.5 milligram, like soccer mom LaCroix type beverages. You have your 100 milligram Uncle Arnie's, like Liquid Death. No, I'm kidding. It's a great brand, but you only take a little bit at a time. One of my favorite brands, Mary from Faros, is here sitting quietly in the back. If you have not tried her black cherry Pharaohs. It's absolutely everything. I'm addicted. It makes me feel like I'm a 15-year-old drinking Dr. Pepper at a rave. Like, I love it. There's so many beautiful brands out there, and I'm so glad that we get to try them all a little later. But until then, do we have any more questions? Go ahead, honey. What's your
More
name?
than a question, my name is Rosana Sandoval. I'm a journalist from Somos Only One Bilingual Newswire.
Welcome.
It's not a question, it's practically complement a little bit what you are saying to everybody, not just for you. You are an expert but in marketing and everything. But for new people, like really, all these events has media, so everybody has to take advantage that we are here. And you have to tell us a story and be more open and even bring like your liquids, your beverage. We all try everything, and we also, criticize you. It's our job, like flavor and everything. Like some of what I was testing is too sweets or whatever. We try to don't get
So,
high. But
as a journalist, my
Yeah.
question to you is, what would be the best way for someone to seek you out and pitch you? And how would they know you would be the right person at your publication? Would it be like the food and beverage editor, the lifestyle editor? How does someone go about getting their brand in your hands to review?
Well, I'm a newswire. I represent 123 media outlets, so we distribute everyday content. So my recommendation to all of you is to the organizers ask where the media is gonna be, because usually they give us a space, a table, a room to work a little bit. And then since previous the event, start connecting and sending electronic press kit. Press releases are not working, and we are right now mainstream media is having a very tough time right now with this administration. However, there is a lot of proactive journalism, you can integrate to other conferences, like at the boat show is coming, right? So how many of you would like to be there?
Okay, so I'm just going to stop you right
Yeah.
there for a moment because she touched on three very valid and amazing points, right? Don't just preach to the choir, okay? It's one thing to bring your beverage here because it's a beverage expo, of course, target demographic. Branch out. Are you bringing your beverages to the boat show, to the car show, to the tailgate?
Yes.
Perfect. Like, think outside the box and spread it around. Another thing she just touched on, find the media room at the event. You're going around and you're giving your samples to everyone.
Yes.
Go straight to the media room and pop a case in there and let people just find it for themselves. Thank you so much for being here. You added so much value.
I'm like I do. I just came from the truck show, and I'm gonna be to the Miami today. We do 2 or 3 tours. Well, in my case, it's international commerce. So yes, reach to organizers as soon as you get your booth. Start talking to the organizers. Where is your media? Where is the distribution of your electronic press case? No press release.
Thank
Press release
you.
right now. Anybody
That's
is
another
receiving.
good point. I'm just going to stop you right there for a quick
Yes.
second because I want to ask a few more questions. EPK is crucial. What she means by electronic press kit is
Yes.
you put your one sheet, your bio, all of your marketing materials, everything into a PDF that you can easily send around, that you could easily bump to someone's iPhone. If you're in that minute and you catch someone's attention, Mark is here, you want to get his attention, he's in a rush, and okay, just send me your EPK. You bump his phone, he's got your EPK. You don't even need to have time for your elevator pitch, he's got everything in a hot second. So being prepared is crucial. And if you don't know what an EPK is, you can obviously just look that up on any online forum. It's very simple. What's that, honey? Or someone can help you and make it for you, absolutely. There are plenty of people here who have those services, PR, marketing, but really it's just getting everything about your brand distilled down into a little jump drive or something you can bump to give to someone immediately, or you can email to them on the spot. So it's crucial to have that type of marketing materials ready. Yes, go ahead. What's your name, dear? Molly, hold on. We're going to get you a mic.
So I was looking up your brand. Sorry, my phone. Sorry. But I'm just gonna ask. This is my boss, so I'm gonna ask you guys what has been the most successful form of marketing you think that kind of gained your clientele? They're gonna come back to you, or they follow you and kind of interact on social.
Yeah, at our
media.
scale, it's being local. So, we're growing a lot from there, but making sure you have a great home base. Winning in your backyard is something distributors, et cetera, want to see. It's really, it's a big big deal when people are recognizing your brand without you opening your mouth more. And that again, that butterfly effect that comes with doing these things, it's nice to have that in a concentrated area. So you'll find brands that, want to launch maybe like, I think it's the Dad Beer in Washington, D.C., and they've just been sinking a ton of effort into there, but it's paying off. And, they're making a great name for themselves. And now they've caught on to a bunch of other distributors, and really it's just a matter of them going and executing. So it's because they've had that proof of concept, and they've done it in a very, proven way. So I think if you start local and just, again, gain that success and just build from there, that's the best way to start, in my opinion, if you don't have a bunch of money.
That's an incredibly valid point, because the same way national media will pick up stories from hyper-local media outlets and scale them and syndicate them, I imagine in the alcohol beverage trade, having a strong hyper-local presence is the first indicator that a brand can scale to similar communities in different areas.
Well, and if you're trying to get proof points to a distributor, if you go too wide and you don't have velocity, you're not going to be able to go from regional to national.
I just want to see if anyone else has a question before I give you a second question. Just bear with me. Over here, please. In the peach.
Thank you. My name is Janet. I'm wondering, in 2025, what did you spend on advertising per case in all of your, I know that the multi-brand house, that's a little bit more difficult, but for the sole brands that you have in 2025, what did you end up spending per case for advertising?
I won't be able to answer that question because we just launched in November. So.
Yeah, I go back to knowing your numbers, and you running a bad business if you don't. But I don't have that exact number either. So
So let's rephrase rather than the exact number, because I'm sure that's different people in their companies would have that information. I would say, what percentage of your budget do you put into advertising approximately?
yeah, even that has been kind of in flux. So a lot of our stuff has been, dealing with regulations and making sure that we have inventory that is, compliant and tastes great. So we've spent a ton of, resources around there, and not as much in some of the, digital spend and stuff that we'd like to. So I think, again, going back to knowing your numbers, it's really important you kind of understand the economics of what it takes to get that case in there and to win that account. And if you don't, then you're floundering. So,
But I think we can
40%
Yeah,
if you're really trying to scale down to 20% if you're trying to maintain.
Yeah, and I was going to say right now we're forecasting about 30%, but we're so new, so we're trying to figure out what's working and what's not, and he would have a much better representation of we should be spending.
The one thing I would say on marketing is that, if you're in an alt or hemp THC, you can sell DTC, and if you can sell DTC and you can get it to work, and there's some amazing partners that you can work with to scale. I mean, it's a lot easier to go into your distributor if you've been the cheapest way to market your product is to sell it at break even or profitably. Okay, so if you can scale from 0 to 5, I mean, when we've taken a brand out and we've done, say, 5 million in DTC in the first year, it's a hell of a lot easier to go into a distributor and say, hey, they go, I've seen you everywhere. You have velocity. What's revenue been? So it's a great proof point. It's the easiest way to scale one of these brands. And for those of you who have ever been or adjacent to alcohol, it's a gift to be able to do it, because you just cannot do it in the traditional 3-tier system. So that's the single area I would focus on. You get the most scale, the most capacity you can do. Now with the AI tools, you can do an awful lot from a one or two man show. That's where you get all of the leverage in the early days, in my opinion.
Thank you. Okay, we have time for one last question, new question. Anyone?
Thank you. Just a question. It's going to make it a little hard for you guys. What is international? Yeah, the US is a big market. what does the international market look for you guys in the future, especially thinking of what might happen in November? How does drinks or beverages coming outside of the US or from the US to the international market, what is your takeaway on what's going to happen outside of the US? How can that products come in or products go out to other markets, especially thinking November might be difficult to some products and Europe is big, Latin America is
Klaus,
big?
dear honey, you know I love you.
It's a good
But
question.
that is not a question for a marketing panel. And it's just it, building and scaling. Okay, does anyone want to speak to that?
I would say there's only so many people doing distribution internationally. I mean, you can look to how many licensed cannabis distributors there are internationally. It's very few. So back to the relationships. I mean, speaking with them and figuring out what's maybe possible, what's already being done, and then seeing if you can make a business model around that that supports it. So for us, we have dreams, aspirations. Of course, when we think about building the brand as big as we can go to go international. But it's not really something that we're spending time on, focusing. It just doesn't really make sense yet. But if I was making gummies, that'd be a different story, right? So it kind of just depends on the business that you're operating.